Wow, how many of you remember that song, Waichukucha? 2013 Song of the Year 2013. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the African Institute of Leadership and Governance. This is your friend and brother Emmanuel Nkoma. Let me know where you're catching me from. We have come a bit late with our live class on social media, which we bring on social media because we are having a power outage in our area. You know, after the rains the past 5 days, a number of equipment has collapsed, and we have gotten the news that even the president, Cyril Ramaphosa, is visiting eThekwini today just to check on the damage that has been caused by the floods and checking on the victims. Once again, we reiterate our condolences to all the families that have lost their beloved ones, lost property, lost their homes. We feel that it's just important that we as African people, we continue to stand side by side when we meet such challenges. So guys, if you are listening to me for a first time, once again, this is Emmanuel Nkoma from the African Institute of Leadership and Governance right here in KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. The African Institute of Leadership and Governance is an institute that exists to train, equip, and educate our leaders so that Africa can be governed well. We are also a member, we are also a registered member, active ambassador with the Intra-African Trade, and we are also affiliated to the government as the NPC Act, under the NPC Act, and we have also our accreditations that have been done with SETA so that we can offer quality education. So if you are looking for an institution that can train you in leadership, you are looking for an institution that can equip you as a leader to become a strong leader, we are here so that you can be vetted, verified, examined, educated. So when you go out there, you will speak with boldness. I just started by playing the song Waichukucha, the song of 2013, Song of the Year 2013. That song, if you remember the song 2013, this song shook the world. But what happens after that? This is what we have been saying, that our guys in the entertainment industry, our guys in the arts and culture, our guys in the sport, they need to upgrade themselves with education that can keep them relevant all the time, because arts and culture can be a very lucrative career. It can be a very lucrative career. Entertainment industry can be a very lucrative career. But our African system were not so structured that education-wise was not being given. Hence, they failed to explore the opportunities that are there. So, at the intra-African trade, as I said to you at the beginning of, at the end of the last year, 2021, when the COVID was coming down, well, opportunities were presented. Young people came from across the continent, and it was such a great privilege for us as the Institute to be present at the CANEX so we can understand. So next year, 2023, if you are an actor, you are a musician, you are an entertainer, we are going to Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire. We are having the intra-African trade fair in Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire 2023. And that's the platform where Africans will be given an opportunity to showcase their talent. And through the African Institute of Leadership and Governance, we can be able to see how best can we assist and facilitate for you and your country, wherever you are. Remember, this is beyond, as long as you're an African, okay? As long as you're an African, feel free. But the most important thing that I have to remind you is that the people that we are going to recommend are those who have done training with us, because we know that for sure they will not embarrass us when they go to the higher platforms at the Intra-African Trade Fair next year in Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire. Today, let me begin again, Module 5. We are doing Module 5. Those that did the January intake, you were able to learn the subject, but those that have not, I want you to look at this, and I will just browse through as we look at Module 5, the law of the bias. What is bias? How do you deal with bias? How can bias be turned into positivity? We want to look at that this morning. And in the next few minutes, please get your pen and paper. Write if you are following me from social media, because I will not be so long in my definition. So let's look at that as we begin. What is bias? I will summarize bias in this way. Several empirical research studies have shown that cognitive bias can unconsciously distort interference and interpretation made by judges, either at the hiring, ruling, or sentencing stage of a court trial. And this may result in miscarriages of justice. Now, let me establish by saying, therefore, in this module, we are going to look at how cognitive heuristics affects judicial decision-making, with 7 common manifestations of heuristics, such as availability heuristic, confirmation bias, egoistic bias, echoing bias, hindsight bias, framing, and representativeness bias. Now, in this part, as I've spoken to us, that it is important for us to begin to realize that this thing called bias happens everywhere. We have used the justice system here so that we can see it common, because every one of us knows how the justice system operates in country to country. Okay. Allow me to state and say there are different manifestations of heuristic pose a potentially serious risk to the quality and objective of any case or any judicial system. Now, we must also know that professionalism plays a role in order for us to avoid the bias. Therefore, suggestions on how best to avoid and minimize the effects of cognitive heuristics, especially within South African courts, are preferred. This includes creating awareness, raising a cross-examination, and replacement. That is why when you go to court, after you are a witness, you are given a time for what we call cross-examination. When you are given that time, that the lawyers or the other lawyer that is called maybe from the other side, they'll give you an opportunity, or they'll be given an opportunity for cross-examination, so that the justice system is measured at par. So I am discussing today about the law of the bias, and I have just begun to share with us on the number of things that we need to understand. Let's understand this. The big problem here is, number one, the problem is that as it is everywhere, it is with unconscious bias. Bias operates unconsciously most of the time. Bias operates unconsciously most of the time. I dare say that we all suffer from a degree of unconscious bias. We all suffer from a degree of unconscious bias. And it can occur in all sorts of manifestations. It may be in the church, it may be in the sports, in football, it can be in cricket, it can be in the entertainment industry, it can be in politics, it can be in any sort of governance system. We can all experience the bias. We can all experience the bias. Okay. It is almost by definition unknown. It is almost by its definition unknown, and therefore extraordinarily difficult to get rid of. It is extraordinarily difficult to get rid of, or even to allow for. Okay. I will stop there and hit a few important issues there, and I'll be wrapping up. Because I'm just bringing, this is module 5, introduction of bias. So how do you identify bias? How do you identify that you are biased? Number one, remember, it's unconsciously done. It's also something that we cannot run away from it. Every one of us suffers from a certain level of biasness. Every one of you suffers from a certain level of the bias. But we in this module, we are looking at how can you turn from the negative bias from a negative effect to a positive effect as a leader. Okay. Now, let me begin by stating to us and I gave you 7 types of bias, right? I gave you 7 types of bias, and these are the biases that I spoke about, which affects us almost every day. Okay, I spoke about on how we call the 7 manifestation of heuristics, such as availability heuristics. Okay, it's a bias. Confirmation bias, where it can be confirmed. Egocentric bias, okay, where you have to feel this ego. I spoke about that. Echoing bias, that which plays in your mind, okay? Are we together? And hindsight, those that you can't see, blind spots. You know, we call them blind spot. You cannot realize that you are on the blind spot, but you are playing the bias. Then there is what we call framing bias, which we call institutionalized kind of bias. Then we also spoke about representativeness bias. Okay, now these all biases, they may seem to be so academical when I speak, and they may seem to be very complexy in understanding the words and the terminologies that we are using. That's why you are in school. But listen to this. Let me begin by stating this morning on how then do we deal with this bias? What are the factors and issues that we can help us to understand this bias? Number one, racial bias. Okay. Do you know that bias works with magnetism? Did you know that bias works with magnetism? And bias will make sure that you are able to favor your own race. I call it racial bias. It's magnetism. Let's say you go to Ireland and you are maybe in Greenland and you're working, you're from Africa. You go to the shopping mall, 90% you find they're white people. Automatically, you see a black, then all of a sudden you see a black couple, a black family. Without you knowing them, you just feel like greeting them. You just feel at ease. You just feel like relaxed. What has caused that? It's what we call racial bias. The racial bias. So the racial bias has caused you to feel like, let me say, hello to them. Not that you know them, not that they are good people, not that they are bad people, but just because of the color of your skin, your melanin, it has made you feel comfortable to talk to them. Are we together? So that is caused a racial bias. It just happens automatically. Now, this is where we can look at it from many angles. Let's go. Let's say we are all in Africa and we are all in South Africa, let's say. There's also what we can call lingual bias. The lingual bias. Let's say you come from Limpopo and you're in KwaZulu-Natal. And all of a sudden you just hear people, blah, 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 spade. All right, now I'm speaking spade. So I said, blah, 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 spade. You meet with them and you hear them, oh, they're speaking spade. But you're in KwaZulu-Natal, you're in Durban, you say Tequini. Then you hear them speaking spade and you are a pedi from Sisheho, or you are a pedi from, yes, you are a pedi from Liwaho. When you hear them speak pedi in Etequini, you quickly rush to them and you want to greet them. You want to talk to them. It's what we call a lingual bias. And they will respond to you politely. Immediately you go to them, you speak to them in Pedi. They will also respond to you in Pedi. They say, hey, maybe this can be my relative. Okay. Are we together? That can be called bias. Let's now look at generational bias. Generational bias. Here is the generational bias. You find that if you are 25 to 20, the people who are between 20 and 25, they can cluster themselves as buddies, as colleagues and friends. You are between the age of 40 to 50, you can also classify yourselves as buddies. Then when they reach 50 and above, you see them classifying themselves as madala. Say madala and jingamaj. We are the old fellas. Now, the generational bias operates also as magnetism. Okay? Are we together? Now, after I have shared with you, oh, I forgot something else. Gender bias. Automatically that you are male, you feel like having friends who are male, working with male friends. Gender bias. Of course that you are a female. You start having friends who are female. Right here in South Africa, we've got what we call the transgender, the LGBTQI community. The transgender community. So the LGBTQI, if you belong to the LGBTQI, you also find yourself, you associate yourself with the LGBTQI community. And yet, there is no law written somewhere that says it will segregate us from this group to this group, that group to this group to that group. All these things happens unconsciously. If you belong to the LGBTQI community and you are in the mall at the pavilion, and you're just walking in the pavilion, and then all of a sudden you are a guy and you see this other person is moving, and he's dressed in a nice suit and he's skating, and you look at him and you look at yourself and you just feel, oh, that seems to be my clique. Then you're just gonna go say hi, you're just gonna go say hi, and then he or she gonna respond hello. Then oh, we belong to the same group. You just click. He's not gonna shout at you, he's gonna fight. It's the law of the bias. Where do we see bias? What does bias play in our lives and society? We always realize that bias has got a negative effect onto our day-to-day lives. Bias has got a negative effect and has got also a positive effect. Let's look at hiring. When people are hiring in a company, and this is what you have to look out for as a leader, that you don't practice the law of the bias even when you're not supposed to. Let's say you are a political leader, or before we get to politics, let's start with a religious leader. Let's say you're a religious leader and you're looking for people to work in your department as your ushers, as your choir members and all that. Do you consider those effects? Do you look at that? And that can hinder you to maximize the potential in others. It's called the law of bias. Let's look at I'm talking about hiring there. Let's look at if you are a political leader. Let's say maybe you're a president and you are given this prerogative of choosing the cabinet. We call it the prerogative of choosing the cabinet. The power is to choose the cabinet by the Constitution. Are you going to look at your block? You say, okay, Mina, I come from Limpopo, and so the people that must be in our cabinet must be from Limpopo, Northwest, and part of Gauteng. Okay, Limpopo, Northwest, and part of Gauteng, so that these people, we can speak the same language. Not so much from Cape Town, not so much from KwaZulu, not so much from the Eastern Cape, because these people don't understand the same language. And if we favor them, then they may manipulate us. That's how leaders think. Most leaders, they play that way. So they are going to choose, they are going to be choosing from their block, tribal cousins. They choose their own family members and put them in the strategical positions. And the whole cabinet, when they meet, they speak the same language. It's ethnicity bias. It's ethnicity bias. And you find that if a woman is running a political party, you find all women around him or women around her and all of that, and the men are resistant, and it's also gender bias. We find that even when they come, in church, as a pastor those years, I would go to places. When you go to England, for example, London, I'm going to tell you this, you find this black church and the pastor is a Nigerian, massive church. The pastor is a Nigerian. Guess what? 90% will be Nigerians. You go to America, it's the same thing. 90% will be Nigerians. It's the law of that bias. So in order for you to grow as a leader, you must deal with these things. Remember, these are unconscious issues. Have you seen when we are advertising our institute and some of the countries, when you tell them, you send it to them, boom, they think, hey, maybe it can be a scam. Hey, maybe it can be this. Maybe it can be that. It's because of the law of the bias. It's the law of the bias. It is important for you as a leader, to begin to realize that in order for you to, in order for you to have maximum results in your leadership quest, you must deal with the law of the bias. So, guys, we came late today due to load shedding, but I want to say this to you, that we are going to continue with next week. I'm going to continue on the law of the bias for one more lesson as we look at module 5, as we discuss on the law of the bias. But listen to this. This is not enough. The detailed information is given when you are a member of the African Institute of Leadership and Governance. So register now and become a member. It's a simple course, powerful. It will equip you. You go out there, you speak with confidence. Remember this. The African Institute of Leadership and Governance is there for you so that you can remain relevant in your leadership. That's why you can see my background there. They are all leaders that we have worked with from all walks of life, because we understand that leadership is key. Whether in any field that you are in, you need applied leadership qualities. So get your pen, write to us, inbox us, get us to our WhatsApp, post this in your groups, and I will be glad to hear from you. Emmanuel Nkoma here until I come your way again. Remember, we are not coming back tomorrow because Njengamanje this week is a short week, And we are closing the day today so that people can go the holidays for the Easter periods. Nami ngiye emakhaya njengamanje. Asambele ipompo. Siyodla ubuswa. Let's go to Limpopo. We eat our buswa. We eat pap in Limpopo. So those of you who are coming from KwaZulu, those of you are coming from Zambia, those of you are coming from Botswana, hey, Riabo. Botswana, you have been supporting Riabo. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. We want to say thank you to West Africa, Ghana, and Nigeria. You have been doing very well. We want to appreciate your students that have been registering and enrolling with enthusiasm. We want to appreciate every one of you. South Africa, keep pushing. This is yours. We have to keep making sure that until Africa becomes great. Love you. Bye-bye.